So today we're going to do one of my own sets that we're going to end up selling. I've already got one of these, I've already demonstrated one of these before, and this one will therefore be going on eBay. I'm trying to shed one a fortnight, to be honest. So this is better condition than our own demonstrator, and I'm not somebody who has to keep the best one behind. Ah yeah, channel display has a segment out, says Mark on his sticker. Well, I want to discuss channel displays, but I don't want to do it on this video. I really want to do it when we've got a Uniden set in front of us. We've got a Uniden 200 planned, we've got a realistic 2000 planned. We're going to do a super test between the audio line 341, the Uniden 200 and the realistic TRC 2000, which to all intents and purposes are the identical set. But I think that the quality control for the realistic version is going to be better. Still going to have some capacitors changed, but I'm just waiting for some front panel labels because they really suffer from having knackered front panels, and that company who advertise on eBay, who do the sticky label front panels, they do the realistic TRC 2000. I wish to do the Fidelity 2001 and the Fidelity 2000. Perhaps I need samples sending in. Right, so it's a very unusual mic arrangement. You noticed I plugged a 5-pin DIN on, and when we sell this it will come with a standard replacement. Won't be this one, this is our test mic, and it will come with a standard replacement mic. I'll do that before we do the on the air test. So we'll get this plugged in, and so if Mark says the display's got an element out, well, we'll have to deal with that. So this and the Barracuda HP 940, I think they're about the same, if not identical. Flagship sets, don't see many of them. And I can't remember, do these have the bigger speaker like the Binatone 5-star and the Harrier CBX and the Harvard 420M and the Fidelity 2000, to name four that share this same chassis? No. You get the normal speaker. So we're looking for silly modifications, we're looking for capacitor damage, and I can't see either. I'm just going to put my extra daft glasses on and see if I can see any GI joints on the channel selector. It's the tops, so on these, the bottom side, I'll tell you what, we'll unscrew the bottom lid on this one. But this isn't going to be the channel selector discussion. I'm going to go into quite some detail with the way the codes work on normal channel selector switches. I'm not talking about up-down ones from the 90s onwards. So on this chassis, which is, that looks immaculate, on this chassis the channel selector switch connections at this side, the wafer that goes to does the phase lock loop chip's channel selection, and on this side of the board this is the display board. So it could display AA123 and it will still be whatever channel it really is. The display means nothing other than the visual indication. So these are wafer switches, and they're self-cleaning, but after time of non-use, it goes without saying. It's not rusty either. This is good. It goes without saying that they can get dirty and then miss show numbers temporarily until such time as they self-clean with use. So a lot of these sets probably haven't been used for 15, 20 or longer years. Right, there's a very there's a possibility of a dry joint. I'll do that, but it's probably going to be a duff display. It does happen. And at least it's the red display on these sets. So do that before we start. So when Mr. Chippy goes through dry joints on his bench, it's done with a video microscope. We've shown all this. But it isn't just a matter of reflowing stuff. It's just what I've done there. To unsolder it. And then he will get the fiberglass brush or another tool. He's got dental tools. And he'll clean the part, because the reason they usually have dry joints is because the components weren't properly cleaned when the sets were assembled. This isn't normally a problem with Cybernet radios like this, but it is a problem with the Maxon built, I think they were Maxon built back in the late 80s, the baby Midlands. Midland don't make radios, they're a brand. This is where it's multiple sourced. You've only got to look at the Midland base station we use, the 76900. It's a Cybernet 134 like this is. So Midland didn't make it. Cybernet built it for them and sold it to them. Midland just sit there and market the things and make a profit. So because they come from different sources, I can go back to video recorders again, and let's see what socket. Oh, you see, it's the Uniden type socket on a Cybernet set. Yeah, go back to video recorders and some of the own brands. Let's look at Dixon's own brand, which at the time was Seisho. This is before Curry's had Matsui. Could be the same time as, I think they had Triumph at the time. The Seisho VR705 video recorder was a top-load video recorder, which was £329 or something like that, and worked really well. Made by Orion and a lot of sharp parts in it. And then they did a front loader, the VR805, and then we started with the ones made by Funai, and they were awful. So you can't say, oh, I had a Seisho video recorder, it's absolutely fantastic, and I'm always going to have Seisho products, because the next one they come out with may be sourced from somewhere awful. Look at Barracuda. They did this as the flagship set, and then they did a GT868, and whilst I like GT868s, you know, at the end of the day they are bleed over boxes. So Mark says it's got a, and it has 60, 80, 20, 30, it's 40. It's got the top left segment out, hasn't it? So we're blanked on, units are blanked on the first 9. So there you go. What does it say? Display one segment out. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll get on with the set, because it's only one segment out on channel 40, and then we'll look into changing the display if that's what I decide the fault is. But you know, that's really weird because it's only used on 40, so you wouldn't expect that one to fail. So we're going to start with doing the VCO. I'm just going backwards and forwards just in case it's what I was talking about. These can get, through lack of use, I'm going to say dirty or tarnished inside. I have this with church organs with electric action as well, I can assure you, especially when it's electric action from 1890. The test point is, we want channel 40, we've got channel 40. Test point's resistor 4 far side, should be 4 volts, and it's 4 volts. We're going to transmit, and it should be 4 volts. It's 4.5, which is a little high, so we better adjust that one. That's the red trimmer and my crocodile clip. Receive 3.99, 4 volts, transmit 3.99, that'll do me. So we'll start making notes. Just that little bit too high to let go. So it was 4.5 plus 4 volts, it's now 4 volts plus 4 volts. That's one test done. Make sure these switches are in a sensible position, and we'll go now to channel 20. I want that in middle. If we can get it into that position. PA should be on the mic gain, which is there. Testing 1 2, testing 1 2. Turn that all the way up. I'll probably get feedback. I do. Good. RF gain we want to full. Squelch to a sensible position. Back to pit CB. Delta tune to centre. It's got the TX and RX lights, and they both work. Does the meter light up? It does. It bangs across. Let's take that crop clip off. So do suffer from the fronts, the screen printed direct onto the plastic front, and that is immaculate considering there's very little wear in comparison to most sets of this type. Let's see whether it's anywhere near on frequency. Let's put picture in picture on and move it to there. Well, you know, that's pretty close, isn't it? I think the gear's still warming up, but we'll do it at this point. I'll tell you what, we'll come back, we'll do the transmitter and then we'll come back to it. So let's look what it's doing on transmit. Making sure we're on channel 20, which we are. It's actually doing 4.6 watts, which is no good at all. It's had the screwdriver expert in it. Channel 40, 4.5 watts. Channel channel 1. It's doing 4.6 watts. Back to channel 20. Current consumption 1.295. And on low power, which is stupidly at the back on a set with all these switches, he's doing a very clever 700 milliamps, 700 milliwatts instead of 400 milliwatts. So, you know, no, it's always got no idea. So what I'm hoping is it hasn't been left in what I would call service mode. And that is when we're doing the peaking, you're setting the PA for absolute maximum as a very temporary basis, so you can balance the set and drop it to the 4 watts, which is the legal limit. The reason it is able to do, it needs to do 4.4 watts to balance properly. And the fact that it's at 4.6 watts is telling me that this is flat out, it should never be left like that. I'm not talking about this from a legal point of view. It's not going to make any difference to somebody's range. It might add 2 feet on or something, but it's thrashing the set. So the legal limit's 4. The service manual says I'm set them for 3.8 watts, but they've got to get them through customs. They're batch tested at customs, and if something is over 4 watts, then the whole batch would be rejected. So to avoid that, they always set them low, always have done, always will do. The dealer's supposed to set all this up before selling the sets, but they don't. They shift boxes, don't they, at the cheapest possible rate. Okay, so we've got to try and tune this up quickly because it's already being thrashed. I've got to check for that peak. So that looks right. Check for that peak. That looks right. In fact, the results tell me it's pretty well balanced. Yep, they're okay. So, we need the yellow one to full, which it was already at. The middle one to full. Oh, which it was already at. Surprise, surprise. And the top one to full, which it was already at. So the set has been left in service mode, which is a definite no-no. And you know what? You could, if you keyed it for 10 minutes, the coils, the plastic formers would melt, and then you wouldn't be able to adjust it ever. And we just come across some of these sometimes, and the coils have melted. You know that they've been thrashed like this. And it doesn't make them last very long. So we need to turn the yellow one clockwise for 4.4 watts. It's probably 4.7 now. So there's 4.4, and the green one anti-clockwise. As I say, the service manual says 3.8 watts, but of course the legal limit's 4, and we're having everything we're allowed. The other thing, if you go over the design power, then spurious emissions could well come up and you're causing interference. We'll go back to the Amstrad story with the ballast resistor that some silly people link out, because it then looks like the set's doing more power, like 7 watts. And when we put one on the spectrum analyzer, the radio was doing 2 point something watts on 27 megs and 4 watts on aircraft band as 112 megs. So on a cheap power meter, yeah, it's doing 7 watts, it's doing 8 watts. It's being the PA's being thrashed, it's taking off. No literal intention of a pun there with the aircraft band. And the result is that you're actually only getting 2 point something watts on 27 megs. Just potentially interfering with aircraft band. So, that's now set right. But is it? It needs to be within 0.1 between the channel edges. So So channel 40 is 4 watts and a smither, and channel 1 is 4 watts and a smither. Right, so we'll now deal with the meter on the front. The meter preset's there. So key up, go to channel 20. And it's actually correct where it is. So it was reading 4.5 because it was, and it's now 4. Right, we'll deal with low power. Oh, it's now 1.2 watts. It's now 400 milliwatts. And the current consumption is now 1.145 amps. So the frequency, so I'll now write this down and we'll do the frequency. $27,791,000. $27,791,000. So that isn't off frequency. It needs to come up to 125, but it's neither here nor there. It's well within spec, but we will be pulling it up right now. If it'll go. Quartz crystals drop with age. 27,791,226. Just slightly above the 125, so it'll drop onto frequency. I'm going to have a quick check at deviation, but with the transmit power having been left in service mode, I wouldn't be surprised if deviation isn't stupid. Let's go back to the main meter and have a look. I'll have to take the test set with a pinch of salt because the deviation meter sometimes reads false on this particular test set, and we then read it on the one behind. In fact, we always read it on one behind as well. Wow, it's actually saying 2.6, so that is not that far out. I'll look at it on the proper on the other test set behind me. The meter lamp works upper left tens digit not working. Right, we'll look at receive. So we'll put the signal generator on and we'll dial in 27,791,225. Just like that. And we'll see what the radio is doing. Well, I'll tell you what, it's doing alright. Not 0.2. It's doing more than alright. I'm between scales, and this is where it's difficult to get any reading which is sensible. Still 0.2. Just got that changeover where it's just not quite overlapping. And on for 20 dB it's doing an incredible 1.2 sorry, 0.38. Squelch. So we'll go to the attenuator and want it to be opening at 100 microvolts, 310, 30, 100. It's exactly right. There we are, 100 microvolts. While we've got 100 microvolts, let's see what the S meter says. Oh, it says 6. So what do we need to get 9? Oh, it's spot on, it's 100 microvolts. And the squelch threshold just check that. .58. I keep turning the knobs where I expect them to be, and they're in a funny position on these. Funny to me anyway. Now we'll go through the receiver. Start with the detector, put 100 microvolts on the signal generator. We'll put the oscilloscope up on the inset picture. I've got a nice picture of a test lead there. Let's just change that to a bigger one. Detector. See what maximum is. There was a tiny little change there. Squelch off, and we'll go to the SINAD meter and we'll go through a tune. I'm not expecting to be able to get anything else out of this, because if I do, it will exceed any other Cybernet 134. So we're going to drop the signal generator attenuator till we get to about 4 dB on the SINAD meter. No change. No discernible change. Same applies. Same applies. Hang on a minute, might be getting something here. We put a bigger signal on for the IF. And then the one down there. Right, we'll read off a new reading. For 12 dB, it's 0.2. For 10 dB, I've tried to change scales and we're back to the overlap problem. It's 0.2. For 20 dB, .36. Got to now check the squelch hasn't changed. Squelch to full. It has changed. We've now got to adjust the squelch. And our new threshold that wasn't good. Try again. .42. Our new S meter reading. I can just put a tiny bit on that. So apart from deviation, we'll go to the test set behind me. And then faff about with the display. Right, here goes. Let's see what the deviation is. Well, it's about 2.7. So the Marconi's not lying today. So I've just set this correctly. I want that to the centre position. It's already in the centre position. I think the tiniest little turn there. Wallow. There we go. So it was 2.4 to 2.6. It's now 2.2 to 2.5 kilohertz. So I'm going to take a break, and when I come back, we'll see what we can do with that digit. Might be a matter of finding a scrap chassis and pinching a display. Right, I thought we'll resume the video at this point. Let's take picture in picture off. So, I'm taking the front off, taking the channel selector switch off, unsoldered the channel selector switch from the printed circuit board, and it is quite troublesome because they've bent over the pins. So what we tend to do, Mr. Chippy would be doing this, he'd use his dental tools, but I'm using, just to make sure these are actually clear of the solder, which they are. Well, they were. There we are. So I've pulled that off. So now we've got to release. This is fun, isn't it? Surely we don't have to take, I'm hoping we don't have to take the channel selector off from the bottom board. Let's just take the front off. Yeah, there's just enough wire to get that out. So I've got a donor one off a Harrier CB, which was in a dire state. And you'll notice they've, instead of having individual resistors, they're resistor packs. Now, these can be troublesome, not necessarily on Cybernet sets, but in general they can be troublesome. So what I did before condemning the display was to put a resistor, it's 1.8K, with the set on and on channel 40 across each individual one, so that, because I don't know which pin relates to which segment, and to see the effect, because if it was a fault in an open circuit resistor within these resistor packs, then the segment would have lit. Well, it didn't, so then you've come to the conclusion that it's the display. So these are going to be different boards, yep. So it's now a matter of unsoldering the actual display and hoping they're the same. Okay, so Mr. Chippy has changed that. Now it's the fun of putting all this back together. We'll get one screw in there. Of course, this is probably going to be an hour and a half job, you know, to start to finish. And then you've got to hope that it hasn't got damaged in soldering. There's actually a short pillar goes in this. Right, so we're now greeted with a 40 on the display. So, can I turn that by hand? Not very easily. Good. And they have a dimmer on these. Oh, that's PA. There we go. Both the displays dim, the meter and the LED. Right, so we'll go through the faff of putting it together. Right, so it's all put back together. So the only thing now remaining is to do the speaker lid. Let's see if the speaker works. Let's put the power back on. Oh, this is frustrating. So about 50 minutes on the radio and an hour and a quarter doing the channel display. And involving Mr. Chippy. There was a screw missing out of the side of the set and I've put an extra screw in. Good. And it's making the right noises. Right, I'll put the actual top lid on. So you can get replacement red displays quite easily. You can get green displays with not as much ease. I think the thing to say is that lots of new displays are brighter than ones of yesteryear. So it wouldn't be good to put new displays in of the latest manufacture just willy-nilly. So I'm glad we've got that available. Did I show you the front of this donor set? Going straight in our bin and that. I've shown that, we've used that set for bits before, and it's PA transistors knackered in it. We've had loads of bits off it now, but it just wasn't worth spending that kind of money on a set in that kind of condition. Right, so put it on the aerial, turn the test gear off, and we'll have a flick round knowing this is a super sensitive set. Well, Nana, Roger.
Everybody out there got triple magnet.
Well, Nana, Roger. Good. Right, well there we are, the Sapphire X4000. You don't see many of those, and you don't see them in that good a condition. And we'll stick that one on eBay, try and recover the service costs we got with a new mark and a new power lead. Thanks for watching.